I stood there in my wedding dress, covered in champagne and cake, and across the room, Kayla, my sister-in-law, just stared at me like she'd won. She didn't trip, she didn't cry. She threw that glass on purpose. Then shoved our wedding cake to the floor layer by layer like it meant nothing. The worst part, her mom, my new mother-in-law, wrapped her in a hug and whispered, "She just needs to let it out." That night, I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I opened my laptop, and Ethan and I burned everything down. Our wedding day was supposed to be soft. Soft light, soft jazz, soft smiles. We kept it small 43 guests, a vineyard just outside Santa Rosa, string lights overhead. I had my grandmother's pearls around my neck and Ethan's hand in mine. It felt like the world finally exhaled, like all the chaos we'd worked through just paused for once. Then Kayla arrived, late, in a gold backless dress like it was prom night. No greeting, no eye contact. Just a swish of perfume, a champagne flute, and her sliding into the back corner like she didn't know whose wedding this was. I noticed, of course. I always noticed her. The way she moved like she was always being watched or needed to be. But I didn't say anything, because this was our day. And Ethan's family had a way of tiptoeing around Kayla like she might shatter if someone asked her to behave. I'd seen her spiral before at birthdays, holidays, even Ethan's graduation dinner, but never like this, not on my day. The ceremony was already over when she got there, so technically she didn't interrupt anything, yet, but her silence. That was the warning shot. Still, I smiled, took photos, greeted guests. When Ethan squeezed my hand and kissed my cheek, I leaned into him like nothing was off. But I felt it in my gut, the tension, the waiting. Then came the toast. Ethan stood up first, thanking everyone, raising his glass, saying something beautiful about building a life together, rooted in peace. I looked up at him and thought, this is the man I married. This is safety. My glass was halfway to my lips when Kayla stood up. No one clapped. No one even moved. For half a second, I thought she was about to toast too, maybe say something dramatic, maybe even sweet. But her hand didn't rise. It flung. The champagne arched through the air like a blade. It hit the dessert table, shattered a photo of us in Maui. Glass cracked, liquid everywhere. Then, before anyone could stop her, she grabbed the wedding cake with both hands and flipped it. It didn't fall. It collapsed. 3 layers of buttercream and custom sugar roses gone, flattened. The room went dead silent, and then she screamed. "This is what you get for acting like you're better than everyone." I stood frozen. My chest tightened. My voice cracked when I tried to speak, but nothing came out. My mother-in-law gasped and ran to her, wrapped her arms around Kayla like she was the one who'd been attacked. "She just needs to let it out," she whispered. Like we were the problem. Like I was. I looked around the room. Ethan's dad stared at the mess. My best friend had tears in her eyes. The DJ stopped the music. No one moved. No one stopped her. And Kayla, she walked out like she delivered some holy truth. After she left, no one knew what to say, not even Ethan. He stood there next to me, still holding his glass, like the toast never ended. My bouquet had fallen on the floor, soaked in spilled champagne. And the cake we'd designed together with the florist, was just a pile of sugar and grief. People tried to recover. One of Ethan's uncles clapped awkwardly. A friend offered to restart the playlist. Someone joked, "Well, that was dramatic," hoping to lighten the mood. It didn't work. I went to the bathroom. I didn't cry. Not yet. I just looked at myself in the mirror and whispered, "Did that really just happen?" When I came out, Ethan was waiting by the door. "You okay?" he asked. I nodded. "Lied?" "Yeah." He kissed my forehead and said, "Let's just get through tonight." And we did. Barely. The night limped forward. People danced. Some left early. Others acted like nothing had happened, which somehow made it worse. Ethan's mom avoided my eyes all night. She clung to a glass of white wine and stayed glued to Kayla's absence like a grief counselor mourning a ghost. When we got home, I peeled off my dress in silence. My back hurt, my feet were swollen, but it was my heart that felt bruised. Ethan stood by the window, still in his suit, staring out like he was watching the echo of everything shatter. Then, without saying a word, he sat at his laptop. I didn't ask. I knew. A month ago, he told me he was helping Kayla get ready for the fall semester, covered her tuition deposit himself. She'd blown through her summer savings, partied through May, and come crying to him in June. He told me he didn't want to, but he also didn't want her to spiral. That night, though, he revoked the entire deposit. All $9,400 of it gone. Then he logged into the rental portal. He had co-signed her lease last year when she couldn't qualify a loan. Now, he locked the account, flagged it for review. Rent was due in 5 days. He closed the laptop, finally looked at me and said, "She's not ruining another thing." I didn't say anything. I just walked up behind him, wrapped my arms around his shoulders, and held on like I was afraid he'd disappear too. At 8:40 a.m. the next morning, Kayla called. He didn't answer. Then came the texts. "What the hell? Why is the portal locked? Did you do this?" I watched Ethan's face as he read each message. He was calm, too calm. He muted his phone, poured us coffee, and said, "This isn't over, but it's starting now." That's when I knew this wasn't just a family spat anymore. This was a line in the sand. By day 2, Kayla had moved from confused to furious. She texted Ethan again. This time, no punctuation, just rage. "You had no right. This is my life. You don't get to play God." Then came the email. Subject line, "Are you seriously doing this?" I read it first. Ethan was too busy canceling the auto payment on her utility bills, another temporary favor that had been going on for over a year. The email was long, dramatic. She listed every upcoming expense she had: textbooks, furniture, installment groceries. Then came the guilt. "If I get evicted, that's on you. You know I don't have anyone else. You're the only person in the family with real money. Don't let it go to your head." And then this line I only lashed out because I was overwhelmed. "You should have seen it coming." Overwhelmed. Like that word erased everything. I forwarded the email back to Ethan, added one line, "Your circus, your call." He didn't reply to her, but Kayla didn't stop. That evening, she showed up at our apartment. She waited until Ethan went out for groceries. I saw her through the peephole. Hoodie, no makeup, eyes red. I didn't open the door. She knocked over and over, first fast, then slow, then loud, deliberate, like she was marking time with every hit. After 10 minutes, I cracked the door open just an inch, enough to see her face, not enough for her to get in. "What do you want, Kayla?" I asked. She blinked like she wasn't expecting the question, like she thought I'd just let her in. "I need to talk to Ethan," she said flatly. "He's not home. I know he's in there." I didn't blink. "He's not." She clenched her jaw. You can't do this. You can't just shut people out because they mess up once. I laughed, not because it was funny, but because she actually believed that. One mistake, Kayla. You ruined our wedding. She didn't even flinch. I had a panic attack. No, I said. You had a tantrum. I was still behind the door. My voice was calm, but my hand was tight on the knob. Then she said something that made my skin crawl. You owe me. I paused. I owe you, I repeated. She nodded. You married into this family. You knew what it came with. I didn't respond. I just closed the door, slowly clicked to the lock, and stood there, breathing. When Ethan came home, I handed him her voicemail transcript. I didn't speak. Just let him read it. He didn't flinch. She wants to see how far she can push, he said. Let's show her she's out of room. 3 days later, she came back. This time, she waited by the building entrance like she belonged there. I had just gotten home from work, arms full of groceries, when I saw her through the glass doors. She rushed forward like she had been waiting hours. I just need 5 minutes, she said, stepping in behind me. I didn't scream. I didn't slam the door. I dropped the bags, grabbed her by the arm, spun her around, and shoved her right back into the hallway. She stumbled. Are you serious right now? She hissed. Dead serious. If you ever try that again. I said, my voice low but sharp. I'll call the police. She blinked, hesitated. I didn't wait for her to find words. I grabbed a fistful of her hoodie and pushed her back clean direct down the hall like I was dragging out the trash. She shrieked. You're insane. But I didn't flinch. I didn't raise my voice. I shut the door, locked it, walked into the kitchen and poured myself a glass of water like nothing happened. 10 minutes later, Ethan's phone lit up. It was his dad. Look, Frank said with a tired sigh. We need to talk about your sister. Ethan put him on speaker. She's spiraling. Frank continued. She needs help landing. That thing at the wedding. It wasn't personal. I leaned against the counter, arms crossed. Ethan's eyes didn't leave mine. Not personal, he asked. She attacked my wife in front of 50 people. She didn't attack Ethan, cut him off. And she threw away everything I ever gave her. Frank lowered his voice. You're older. Be the bigger person. That phrase, that toxic, tired phrase. I watched Ethan's jaw tighten. He didn't explode. He didn't argue. He just said, I've been the bigger person for years, and I'm done playing small so she can feel tall. And he hung up. It wasn't just about Kayla anymore. It was about the system that built her. The silence, the coddling, the way Frank and Susan had turned she struggling into a hall pass for chaos. Later that night, Ethan and I sat on the couch in total quiet. Not awkward, just still. He poured me wine. I rested my head on his chest. And for the first time since the wedding, I felt something shift. Not in us, but around us. Like the air had cleared. Like the fog had finally rolled away and we could finally see where the rot had been growing. Kayla didn't come back the next day. But she didn't vanish either. She started texting me. Not Ethan, me. Apologies dressed up in guilt. Paragraphs pretending to be growth. But every single one ended the same way he still owes me. I didn't reply. By message 4, I blocked her. That's when she escalated again. She told her parents I'd physically attacked her. Said she came to reconcile and I ambushed her. The next morning, a family group chat popped up on my phone. Frank, Susan, Kayla, Ethan, me. No warning, no subject, just one message at the top. Let's have an honest talk. No yelling. We're still a family. I should have seen it coming. The group chat was chaos. Susan opened with a guilt bomb. She's still your baby sister. Frank followed with some half-hearted line about unity. And Kayla typed out paragraphs of emotional monologue I acted out because I felt invisible. I've always lived in Ethan's shadow. Your success makes me feel small. It wasn't an apology, it was a script. Ethan stayed silent. Then I left the chat, just tapped leave group and dropped the phone on the kitchen counter. No drama, just done. The next day, cousin Jessica sent us a DM. You guys need to see this. Attached was a link, podcast trailer, title Bloodline Bruises, Growing Up with the Golden Child. I clicked play. Kayla's voice came through soft and measured, like she'd taken vocal coaching. I thought family meant safety, but sometimes the people who raise you are the ones who hurt you the most. Cue melancholic piano. Photos faded in and out, childhood shots of her and Ethan, some even with me in the background blurred. Then the kicker I'm here to talk about: financial manipulation, emotional abuse, and what it's like to be the forgotten sibling. I froze. My stomach turned. She wasn't just rewriting the story, she was monetizing it. At the end of the episode, she casually thanked her sponsor, a therapy app I'd personally introduced her to last year. She called me from a bar bathroom sobbing. Panic attack. I talked her through it, and now she was using it not just in the story, but in the business model. They even reposted her trailer. 10,000 views in 24 hours. People in the comments were calling her brave, telling her they related, asking when episode 1 was dropping. I turned to Ethan. He didn't even blink. She's selling the version where she's the hero, I said, voice low. He nodded. And we're the villains. I didn't care about internet strangers, but something about it felt invasive, like I was being written into fiction I didn't agree to, like all our silence was now being used as proof of guilt. But Kayla wasn't done. 2 nights later, she emailed Ethan. Subject: let's talk. Body: no drama, just conversation. I think you'd be proud of me. I have things I want to share. It was terrifyingly composed. No insults, no blame, just control. Ethan showed me the message. I read it twice. She's not trying to make peace, I said. He raised an eyebrow. Then, what is this a setup? I whispered. She wants to record you, twist you into something she can clip and post. He didn't reply. He just typed one line. Olivia will be there too. She never wrote back, but something told me this wasn't over. And I was right. 3 days later, while we were having dinner, our doorbell rang. The doorbell rang at 7:15 p.m. Ethan and I were halfway through dinner, leftover lasagna, wine, soft music. I looked at him, he looked at me. Neither of us moved. The bell rang again. Ethan stood up slowly, walked to the door, checked the peephole, and cursed under his breath. It's them, he said. Kayla, I asked. He shook his head. Worse. It was Frank and Susan. No text, no call, just there. He opened the door halfway. Frank gave a little wave like he was dropping by for coffee. Susan had her purse over her shoulder and a determined look in her eyes, the kind that said, "We came to fix what you broke." She stepped forward like she was walking into her own house. "We just want to talk calmly," she said. I stayed in the kitchen, arms crossed, not smiling, not saying a word. They walked in anyway. Ethan didn't offer them seats. He didn't need to. We all knew why they were here. She's going through a lot, Susan began. She's growing, Frank added. Transforming even. And the podcast, I asked. Is that part of her growth too? Susan winced. It's how she's processing. You shouldn't take it so personally. I almost laughed. Frank jumped in like he sensed the mood slipping. She wants a relationship with you, Ethan. She just doesn't know how to say it. I tilted my head. Did she say that? Or are you just hoping she will silence? Then, Susan dropped the real reason for their visit. She's moved back in with us, just temporarily, until she figures things out. The words dropped like stones. I heard Ethan exhale loud and slow. So that was it. They'd paid her tuition, let her move back in, and now they were here not to apologize, but to protect their investment. They weren't mediators. They were managers. Frank took a breath. We just want peace in the family. Ethan stared at him. Have you told her what she did was wrong? They blinked. She was overwhelmed, Susan offered. She didn't mean to ruin your day, Frank added. That's not what I asked, Ethan said. Did you tell her it was wrong? Silence. They looked down. That was our answer. They weren't ashamed of what she did. They were ashamed people saw it. That was the difference. When they finally left after more vague statements and soft-voiced guilt, I followed them to the door. Before I closed it, I said, You raised a daughter who doesn't believe consequences are real. That won't be my problem anymore. I shut the door and locked it. Kayla didn't contact us again. But the podcast kept going. Episode 2. Narcissistic Siblings. Episode 3. When they make you look crazy, Ethan and I didn't even bother to respond. We just lived. Then one night over takeout and cheap wine, Ethan looked at our lease agreement. We have 8 months left, he said. I nodded. Let's go somewhere far, he said. Somewhere quiet. The next morning, we booked 2 tickets. Round trip, Maldives, no family, no drama, just air. We left for the Maldives on a Thursday morning. No layovers, no rush, just 2 passports, 2 suitcases, and 1 shared promise, no more chaos. The plane cut through the clouds like a clean slate. Ethan fell asleep with his head tilted toward the window, and I watched the horizon fade from gray to gold. For the first time in years, my chest didn't feel tight. No notifications, no dread, just air. Our bungalow stood on stilts above the water, real turquoise water that didn't feel like it belonged in the same world we'd come from. There was a sign posted by the door that read, No clocks. Let time be yours again. It hit harder than it should have. We didn't talk about Kayla. Not at first. Not even when the fire emoji showed up in Ethan's inbox just 2 days before we left. No message, no explanation. Just Ethan showed it to me while I was packing. I barely blinked. Let it burn, I said. He smiled. We turned off our phones that night. On day 4 of the trip, while we were eating breakfast on the deck, Ethan finally asked, Do you think they'll ever admit it? I didn't even have to ask who he meant. I sipped my coffee, looked at the ocean, and said, No. But I think they know. Not in the way they'd ever say out loud, but in the quiet discomfort that comes when your scapegoat finally walks away. They knew they let it happen. They knew they funded it with silence and excuses and a dozen second chances. And now they had to sit in the house they built with Kayla back under their roof, spiraling in her own echo chamber, podcast viewership dwindling by the day. Cousin Jessica told us the sponsors pulled out. The engagement dropped. By episode 5, even the comments turned. Apparently, people started catching on to the holes. The stories stretched too far. The tone shifted from wounded truth to performance. Eventually, she stopped posting. No big finale, No apology, just silence. When we got home, we moved. A new place further out, more space, more quiet. We didn't bring the old furniture, didn't hang the Maui photo again. That moment, that cake, that mess, it didn't belong in this life. I changed the password on my bank accounts. Closed old Venmo threads titled Just Until Friday. We sat on the porch at night watching the neighbor's dog chase moths under the light. Sometimes we didn't talk at all. And somehow that silence was louder than anything Kayla ever screamed. I stopped waiting for her to say sorry. I stopped needing Susan to say, "We were wrong." Some fires, you don't fight them. You let them burn, and you walk away finally warm. I used to believe family meant unconditional love, but I've learned unconditional love without accountability becomes a prison. It becomes silence when you need a voice, excuses when you need protection, and guilt when you finally say enough. I didn't walk away from my sister because I hated her. I walked away because I loved myself more. Now I have peace, not the kind you beg for, the kind you build, and if that makes me cold, so be it. What would you do if your sister destroyed your wedding and your family told you to just forgive her? Would you keep giving or finally say, "That's enough"? Let me know in the comments. And if you've ever had to choose peace over people you loved, you're not alone. Subscribe for more true stories that hit where it hurts and heal where it matters.